Welcome back. I'm Hav.
And I'm Aleea.
And as we teased last week, this episode is all about the taboo of saying no and setting boundaries to family or even friend visits, especially after bringing in your new baby. There can be a lot of guilt and pressure and awkward conversations when you don't want visitors, as I both know very well. So let's go ahead and let's chat about it and get some suggestions as well. I guess, Aleea, do you want to?
Kind of start? Sure. I didn't have a ton of unexpected, I didn't feel like I needed to set my boundaries hugely when it came to this. And I think it's one because I do have a smaller village here and things like that. So I knew I wouldn't be too overwhelmed. However, I was really surprised. The one area I actually did feel a little overwhelmed was when I was still at the hospital, just because it was I did wanna see everyone, but I just had gone through a really long labor. It was 31 hours. I was so tired, and I didn't wanna keep my eyes open, and so everyone's excited to see the baby, and I was like, "Oh, but I just wanna sleep," and so that's where I really found I kinda struggled, and then especially, everyone's texting you, and you're, trying to respond to everyone, and I was very overwhelmed trying to keep up, and so to me, I'm like, that can also play into for some people, I'm sure, once you do get home.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's I was only at the hospital a couple days, so it wasn't like once I got home and you have a newborn, it's not like you're catching up instantly. So sometimes that can even filter into those first few days and few weeks, and that's where I really think this plays a role. But yeah, I did feel a little overwhelmed, especially just in those early days because I didn't even have time to process that I just given birth really, or
Yeah.
sleep.
I think that's actually a great point is starting with the hospital visits. I know for me, I know you're a private person too, but like you said, you were okay with having people coming, or at least you thought you were going to be okay with people coming to visit and stuff. I knew from the jump that I didn't want anybody in my labor. I didn't want anybody to come visit. I'm just really, really private, especially I don't know. I can't remember my exact notions in why I was so I don't want anybody here. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm very much so I want to make the decisions that I want to make without people, especially then because I knew that I would be a little bit more susceptible to people telling me what I should be
Right.
doing. And I just wanted to figure it out. So I was like, no, Tony's mom wanted to be there for labor to support me. And nope, not doing it. Didn't let anybody come to the hospital. It was kind of convenient because it was still kind of pandemic time, so they were limited on who was able to come in. But even with no visitors, I was so out of my element and just so exhausted with just the nurses checking on me.
Right.
Thinking about having people coming in and trying to talk to you and hold a conversation, and then you I don't know. I did see my sister had a lot of visitors with her daughter. That was my first niece. And I remember she was like, it was horrible. And so I think I just snatched onto that. Um, but yeah, it's so tiring. And I convinced the doctors to let me go home a day earlier than they wanted to because I was like, I don't want to be here. So it's interesting to see that's a very good starting. And then you get home. And then I know for me, as soon as I got home, people just kind of assumed, well, you're home now.
Right.
So bye. Whereas you said you didn't really have as many home.
I had a few. I felt like it was kind of the same with the hospital. It wasn't a ton, and so I think that's why the hospital visits didn't really bother me as much as they didn't bother me.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, "Oh, this is I'm tired and overwhelmed."
Yeah.
And at home, yeah, it was a little less just but it was also kinda controlled. I feel like a lot of people knew that I kinda wanted some time. It was mostly, immediate friends and family, my
Hmm.
parents and, Hannah and people that I was okay seeing. So
Yeah.
that part didn't feel that much because I didn't have all these people, bombarding me. If anything, we went to go see people, which I almost preferred because it was kind of "Hey, do you wanna see him? We'll, come to you,"
And then you can
and,
leave.
right, and I can kinda control. And it was just nice to kinda get out. I know not everyone feels that, but, I really needed a little bit of, out
Yeah.
of the house.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I remember when I was like, you made the right decision leaving the house earlier than I did,
Mhm.
for sure. I think for me, part of that too, of the stress of home visits was being just in a different environment. The way my family was with accepting, having newborns and stuff, my sister, the one who had the most kids, she would text us a week or two later. and be like, so they're here, they're happy, they're healthy, we'll keep you updated. Whereas Tony's family is very much so like, we're going to come here and we're going to take care of you and we're going to be in your space, whether like, like there's a lot of things that you need to do and we're going to help you. And I was very much so new to the environment of having like that Southern hospitality. And I still very much so. And like, they know I'm like, I like my personal space. But I think that was extra hard for me because it's not like I couldn't leave the room. They were never like upset when I would leave with the baby and stuff. Like I would go to the room and I would take baby with me and we would have our alone time and stuff. But it was just like constantly, for a while, it felt like there was constantly people in my house and people would drive, come and visit from out of state.
Right.
But like they're not just going to visit for 30 minutes and leave. And then you get the guilt if you're like, no, please leave my house because
Agreed.
you drove 3 hours to be here. But like, as I'm thinking about it, I don't think that it was like so much the overwhelm of like feeling like there was like people trying to talk to me. It was just like people being in my space.
100%. And I think that plays on to it's overwhelming because you're tired. You just went through labor. You have this new baby, especially if it's your first child. It's everything's so new. Like I was overwhelmed without people. And
Yeah.
so then when you're adding people, it's just a whole another layer. You're like, oh, and for me too, I also had kind of in the back of my mind where I felt like people were watching me like, oh, am I doing a good job as a parent? Like, are these the right things that I'm supposed to be doing? Especially like if my parents come, I'm like, well, you're a seasoned parent, you know? Like I
No,
just felt that extra worry of feeling judged because I'm like, am I even doing it right?
I think that is such a big thing too. That was for me. I was looking back on it. I may not have it then, but being like, well, they're going to judge me for holding the baby too much, or they're going to judge me for nursing as much as I do, or whatever. And now I know, like, we
That's
just,
not
like we've talked about in past episodes, I had opportunities that they didn't have. I nursed, some of them didn't, stuff like that. And nobody was judging me at all. They just wanted to take care of me. But in my head, it was like, they're gonna, they're gonna judge me, whatever. And I think also for me, a big part of it was I just wanted to get to know my baby.
right.
I just wanted to be alone with her. It was already hard enough sharing her with Tony. Like I remember us being like, okay, I
I
should like
guess.
earn, like, come get your baby, like whatever. And that the first like month for me, Tony was so much better with her. Like he was able to settle her better without nursing, obviously. And like I felt like the only thing that I could do was nurse her to make her happy, all these things. So then having that where you feel like you're being judged for not doing things right, and then you're also judging yourself for whatever small reasons. Like I remember just being like, I just want to be alone with my baby. Like I just want to figure out what she needs. I don't want people, and this is like I'm still working on it. So I have such a hard time when people check on me. I don't know why. I'm sure we could go into therapy and a therapist could tell me that has to do with my childhood and having to be independent, all that stuff. But I do remember one time I was like taking a nap and Tony's mom came in to check on me. And I just was like, I just want to be left alone. And that's not on her at all. She just was trying to, and I don't have my mom, stuff like that. So she was 100% doing what she should do as a mother and checking in on her daughter-in-law. But then you don't want to say that, right? You don't want to be like, leave me alone. But like,
Right, because they're doing something nice and like
yeah, and like making me special teas and and then I think then there's like I have the whole cultural thing too where like they're teaching me about what's culturally acceptable for them after having kids, and then me being like, okay, thank you for teaching me, but like I remember I was like walking around in like my bra and the AC was on or something, and his aunt came over and was like, you're naked and you just had a baby and you're cold, and I was like, no, like get out of my house. Like literally and the baby doesn't have a blanket on. I was like, it's literally 90 degrees outside.
it's okay.
Like it's fine.
And I think what you make a point is personalities play a huge role. Like you and I are the kind of more we like our private time. We're a little more, and then we do have a lot of people in our lives that are the opposite that just want to like flood us with love.
Yeah.
And I do think that also plays a role because you might be listening to this and be like, "Oh, I want all that love and stuff." And I'm like,
Right.
"This you might not need the same boundaries that Hav and I need
Yeah.
because yeah." So I think that's an excellent point is it definitely I think can definitely be personality based too.
Yeah. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in like suggestions and stuff, but I think learning, like paying attention to what is bubbling up for you is a really big thing because I mean, through having Azzy, I think I learned how much like I just needed to figure stuff out on my own. But yeah, because I'm like, it's it's not even like I'm right, they're wrong. It's more so like what I'm being told, but it doesn't feel right for me. Certain things, and some things were super. But to your kind of to backtrack to your point about feeling judged, I remember like like everybody's like, oh, like Tony was like, nobody's judging you, whatever. But of course, that's what I was thinking. And then I remember like one of the first people who came over, like not right after Azzy came, but like a few weeks later, I was like, "Oh," like, talking to Eve, not talking to me, that's my mother-in-law, and like, "How is she doing? Like, is she really doing okay?" And I remember my mother-in-law being like, "She's a natural. She's so good at this. She's got it. Like, if she needs help, she'll ask for help, but, like, she's fine." And I remember that. I was like, "Okay, so you're, like, not judging me for what I'm," like, you're not, and then, learning to ask for advice and stuff like that, I think comes into
Mhm.
play with visitors and stuff, but I mean, I with this baby, I'm still having trepidations about it, like, what am I gonna say? Am I gonna be more lenient with it? I mean, I didn't speak my mind too much before. I was telling you, I made a Facebook post that was basically, like, something along the lines of, like, "We're very happy to have she's home, she's happy, she's healthy. Do not stop by unless you have talked to us or you've been invited.
Mhm.
Like, we won't be accepting visitors at random or whatever." And that was all I said about it. I didn't like when people were like, "Oh, we're coming over," or like ignored the message. I didn't stand up and was like, "No, you can't come over," which I wish I did a little bit more, but there was the people who were like, "Oh, well, that wasn't for me." I just know that message wasn't for me. And I remember being like, "No, like actually more so for you because you think that you can just come over."
Right.
And the people who knew me the best were like, "I tried to tell her that message was for her." Like, and it's not that like I don't want you in my space, but it kind of is a respect thing too. Like, please don't assume that I have the energy, especially because if you're coming over, like you don't know if it's nap time, you don't know if I slept well last night, you don't
Right.
know if baby slept well. I can't ask you if you're sick, like things like that.
Right. Right, there's no preparing ahead of time, and I think before we go into tips that really reminds me of, like, that whole access versus support. It's
Mhm.
like, yes, there's gonna be people there that, want to support you and do those things, but then there are some people that just want access, and, like, sometimes they think like, "Oh, that doesn't apply to me," but you're like, "I made a public post to all of my friends." It wasn't like you pinpointed one person. You're like, This applied to everyone, that's why I made it public."
Yeah.
If for some reason maybe it was for certain people, maybe you would have sent it individually, but to me, you're making a public announcement for everyone in your public circle.
Right.
And so I think that's a good it's just a good reminder that when you are setting boundaries, remember that, there might be moments that you're overwhelmed, but you're really thankful there's people that are there supporting you. But then you might be overwhelmed and there's people that just want access. And those are the people that I think you need to put more boundaries on because they're not really adding and helping. They're kind of just adding to the stress and the overwhelm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that I'm thinking about right now too is like, what do I want? Because again, I still am very personal. I want my personal space. I want to be able to
Right.
figure out what I want to not be stressed about. And like, yes, I've lived here and I've been a part of this family very closely for going on 5 years now, but I still am like, I don't personally enjoy when I'm in the room taking a nap and everybody is in the kitchen talking and being loud or like looking for food in my kitchen. Like, you should be bringing the food, you should be dropping off, and you should be leaving.
Right.
If you're somebody who is helping me take care of me or take care of the baby, it's a little bit different, but like opening a bottle of wine and cracking out my wine glasses and sitting around the table and chatting, you can go to a restaurant and do that. You don't need to do it. So like I think those are some things that I'm thinking about now.
Like, what's the level of access?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, where am I gonna give grace and try to be lenient, and where am I gonna stand my ground? And like, how am I gonna prepare myself for it? Because I think, especially with the family aspect of families who do feel comfortable, like being, and that's the thing, they want people around them all the time. Like,
Right. Right.
and that makes sense, but it's also like, so telling them, like, hey, like, it's time for you to leave is a bit more abrupt than maybe saying, like, hey, like, I'm gonna do visiting hours. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. But that's something we can go into
Yeah.
for tips for sure. Like, there are things that I'm thinking about, but I think it's such a big part of honestly being pregnant is like
Yeah.
figuring out how you want visitations. Like we said, do we say no to them? Do we set boundaries?
Mhm. And then I think even, let's say your boundaries are crossed, what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna do anything? Are you not gonna do anything? I mean, I think those are also things to think about. And so I think you make an excellent point. Let's kinda head into talking about the tips because I do think you kinda started into it. I mean, I know you definitely and I think we can start with kind of the timing problem first, just because
Mhm.
we're kinda talking about timing issues. I know you did the Facebook post. That's a common thing that we could, you can do. I like the idea of visiting in hours, obviously, maybe not calling it that, especially if your family's like, "Ah, blah, blah," but, like or even if you're like, "Hey, just give me an hour heads up." Like, I don't know, you can find ways to work within the realm, but yeah, I like the idea of pre-discussing and pre-thinking about your timing, especially because that's, I feel like, a big issue.
Yeah. And I like how you brought up, or even just being like, give me like an hour heads up or whatever. I think for me, especially because I mean, I don't plan on being as like strict with schedule as I
Right.
was with Azzy. So I think that'll be harder to be like, yeah, you can come from 2 to 4, and then all of a sudden, like 2 to 4 doesn't work, right? But having that, like, hey, like, and for me, sometimes if you didn't text me an hour before to see if I'm available, you're gonna be left at the door. Like, there's just like, you have to give some kind of heads up.
But I think that is that is setting a boundary. You
Yeah,
didn't let us know, "I'm not available." I mean, sorry.
right. Or like, honestly, like, the more that I'm thinking about just like in this moment, I'm like turning the doorbell off. Like, you're not gonna wake me up because you want to be here.
Especially if you had a long night with the baby.
Yeah. Or because if you know my house at all, you know that if you knock and I don't expect you to come, I can't hear you knocking. So if I turn the doorbell off, it's just like, and that also gives me peace of mind because then I don't feel guilty for, you know,
Not
not
answering.
somebody access, stuff like that. But I think a timeline thing too is like when we're accepting visitors. I think maybe, I mean, and this is something that, again, like for me, but I also have to talk to Tony. Like, in an ideal world, like for my family, we just didn't know baby was here until family was ready to have people over. So in my head, I'm like, just don't tell people that I'm in labor. Just don't tell people. But then that would almost feel like lying to me for the people who are super close to us. And then
Mhm.
it's so like maybe telling them, please don't tell anybody. We will tell people when we're ready.
Right.
Or if you do talk to people, please tell them that we will be resting for 2 weeks, or like a certain timeline that we discuss.
I really like the idea of yeah, discussing like you said, maybe you do tell him because I get it. I'm not for lying either, especially like that's how we get into these messes, but it's like maybe you're like we only want a couple people within the couple weeks. Or maybe you don't even say that. Maybe you're just like, we have no visitors for the first 2 weeks, even if
Yeah.
that's not entirely true.
Right.
Something like that. Short visits. I know I said timing, but I think something else that could be good is certain days. Like, hey, Tuesdays are really good for us. You should swing by on a Tuesday. Something like that, I think, can also help just because yeah, boundaries are important, but I mean, people do wanna love you and support you, and we wanna give room for that too. So I think it's kind of like finding things that work for you, but still allowing a little room.
Yeah, kind of like we talked about in the last episode, is like recognizing and being thankful for it,
Mhm.
but also not feeling like you should be expected to
Yes.
accept it 24/7, if
Mm.
that makes sense. I don't know, I do feel like naturally on the second one, because and that's something we talked about on the first before we started the episode, was maybe the first one's a little bit different because people do think that you're going to need more help or expect you to need more help being a first time parent. because I feel like, I mean, even with the second pregnancy, people have just given me more space. So I'm
Yeah.
also wondering, like, I still want to set boundaries and stuff, but I'm also curious to see how like people flock, if that makes sense.
And I will say too, I do think you've done a good job trying to set boundaries over the years, and maybe that's also now playing a role. It's like you have set some boundaries and people are now not fully, but respecting them. So now this pregnancy, they're like, "Oh, I remember the last pregnancy. I know
Yeah.
what Hav wants." And so that's something to remember.
Yeah, and that's fair. People know me a lot
Mhm,
better and are able to like recognize like
mhm.
this might not be what she wants. Is because I mean, just like side note, when I moved here, everybody was like, "Oh, you're gonna be so sad without your friends and stuff," and I'm like, I don't need like to see my friends every day. Like I would love to see them more,
Right, right.
but people are like, "Oh, how many friends have you made in South Carolina?" I'm like, one. Like I literally, even Azzy was like, "Don't you get bored at home all the time, mom?" And I was like, I got enough to do."
Yeah, I have plenty. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Well, I think something to that actually does stem off of that is like, if you are in a situation like I was, where you're in a new environment, or maybe getting to know your in laws a little bit better, or whatever, saying like, hey, for my personal rest, or for, I mean, and if you have a hard time putting it on the onus on yourself, you can say things like, like my care team suggests
Mm,
that more and stuff. But like, I think for me, a lot of it might just be like, hey guys, like for my personal rest, and for me to make sure that I have like the energy to host and things like that. Like I ask that,
mhm,
whatever. So it's not just like people are just like, oh, well, they're just saying this. It doesn't necessarily like they'll be fine.
mhm.
Versus then you come to my house and then you're asking me what's wrong because I'm tired.
Yeah, I really like the idea of using language that maybe just words it better. Like, I
Hmm.
like the like you said, maybe and maybe you have a partner that's willing to take that too, that blame, but you can, like Hob said, maybe you're like, "Hey, my doctor really recommended some rest, really wants low stimulation the first few weeks," like, even just, like, we as a family we're protecting our time, like, we're trying to heal, like, people don't need a bunch of explanations, but I do like the idea of sometimes giving a little explanation of maybe why you're taking those steps, even if it's a small explanation, like, "Hey, I'm doing this because I need to
Yeah.
recover." Like, plain
Yeah.
and simple, like,
I
I
think like
like
a
that idea.
words of that is like you don't owe anybody an explanation, but
Mhm,
if you're anything like me, you'll feel guilty without giving an explanation.
mhm.
So giving somewhat of like it's basically being like, I don't hate you. It's not that I don't
Right.
want you around. It's that I need to rest.
It's helping give context.
Yeah. I am an introvert. Anybody in my space is going to drain me.
Straight up.
Draining enough with a newborn and
Yeah.
a toddler. So,
Yes, I agree. Did you have any other tips? Because I know you're kind of thinking about this more right now. Like I said, I didn't have a ton of boundary setting. I did definitely do like some pre-setting, like, hey, I'd prefer, and maybe that's why I didn't feel super overwhelmed, is the people I did know knew, and then the people that knew I wanted them to visit knew that they could come visit. So it felt, but I was like, it was very communicated. Like it was like, hey, it was just a
yeah.
lot of pre-birth conversations. So yeah, I'm curious if
Yeah.
you have any
I think
additional.
I think maybe, and this is on me, like, and just something to think about for anybody who is thinking about this, is being willing to speak up. I remember people would leave the house and I would like still have so many dishes to do and stuff
Mm,
like that. Me wishing that I just spoke up and was like, you can help me do the dishes, or you can switch the load of laundry, or stuff like that. And that's something that both me and Tony have a hard time doing because we're like, it's not your job. Like, those aren't your dirty dishes. But like, people would like make stuff and they would make it for me in my pots and pans. But then I would be like, but now I just have more stuff to like do. So I think that's something that I'm thinking about as well, is like being upfront and being like, I'm not necessarily like, if you come to my house, you have to like touch something. But like, yeah, like if you like, holding the baby is not helpful for me, to be honest.
right. It would be nice if you came and did something helpful,
Yeah.
versus like adding more work to your plate.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe for me, it's hard for me to communicate with words, as
Me
communicative
too.
as I am.
Me too.
I think maybe something that I might consider is writing a list of things that need to get done that I'm comfortable with not me doing. Switching the
Mhm.
laundry. I don't like people putting my laundry away for me, but you can switch the laundry. You can start a load. You can wash the dishes or load the dishwasher. You can I don't know, like make a meal, stuff like that. And then if people ask me if I need help with anything, I can be like, can you just go check the list that's on the fridge?
I really like that idea because one, you have a set list, you're comfortable with it, but then I also like it because I think people forget, like, I know I've had a bunch of people that come over and they're like, "How can I help you?" And you never know how they can help you. Then you could just be like, "Hey, I have a list. Could you like, if there's something you see on there that you can help me with, that would be great." So I love the idea of just this like running list because it's easy to point people there. You aren't nagging, you aren't like feeling like you have to come up with
Mhm.
something and then they can still help you and provide support that's actually useful versus just
Mhm.
like being there. Not that presence isn't helpful, but when you are in the trenches, a little extra help can really be a big
Yeah.
deal.
And maybe on the list for some people is just sit down in silence with me. Just sit. It doesn't have to be a list of chores. It doesn't have,
Right.
I think that for a lot of people might be something good because you hear all the time, like, oh, yeah, when you go to somebody's house with a new one, like, do the dishes or whatever, like, do something. But then people are like, don't want to ask you questions about how to do the dishes or certain things. So, like, maybe having a list and like whatever they're comfortable with.
I agree because I've definitely like wanted to help but don't know how to help. So I
Yeah.
like the idea of giving them action steps just because I do think a lot of people are like that they do want to help but they just don't know how to support you in your house. Like you said, you don't
Mhm.
really want people putting your clothes away. I get it. I don't really either. But it would be nice if someone, like, helped did the laundry. So,
Right.
but I'm like, I also get it can be uncomfortable being that person like, "Hey, can I go get in your laundry?"
Right.
So, I like the setting. I love that idea, actually. I
Yeah.
definitely the next baby, I definitely wanna implement that too.
Or even like, yeah, I don't, I'm just, I'm like, this is giving me ideas because I'm challenging myself to be more vocal
Mhm.
about asking for help and getting help. And this pregnancy has helped me a lot with it. But even being like, hey, yeah, I'm running out of my oatmeal balls. There's a recipe on the fridge. Can you put it together and put it in the fridge? Like, being like,
Right.
if, people that you're comfortable with, like, there's people that I know that I'd probably just be like, "No," or like, "Can you refill my water bottle? Can
Mhm.
you bring more diapers into the living room?" It can be little things, but, like, the least amount of and then too, I feel like then that at least for me, I'm like, it helps me know that, like, people are here to actually help me and not just get access. Because if you're not asking, then I know why you're here?
Yeah, and I agree. I like having lower level ones, like lower late hanging
Yeah.
fruit, like
Restock the
water
diaper.
right, yeah, things like that, but it does. It shows who's actually there to help, but I think it allows you if you are because 'cause I'm like you, I don't love asking for help. To me, it's allowing myself to ask for help, but you're still kind of avoiding it, you know? It's like I feel
Mhm.
like if you are it's kind of a stepping stone to get you ready to really be like, "Hey, this is what I need help with." So I think that is a excellent tip if you're someone that's maybe more extroverted or you just struggle setting boundaries, is finding ways that you can set boundaries that don't seem invasive, but you're still setting them. I mean, the list, and I even think the doorbell thing, because if you turn off your doorbell, you could just be like, I didn't hear you because the doorbell was off. Like,
And that leads to a conversation and a reminder next time. It's really
mhm.
helpful if you let me know, even 30 minutes before, like, I'm planning and if you don't get a text back, you can assume that we're not available.
Yeah, and so it's like I feel like it's allowing you to start setting boundaries, but if boundaries are hard to set, it's not a super big. Like you're not asking too much, and I think that's something to remember. Yeah, so to kind of wrap up, I guess just just that this is the reminder that like we were just saying setting boundaries is hard, especially when you love someone and you don't want them to feel bad. It's so easy to feel guilty for sending someone away, but it's not our jobs to manage other adults' emotions, especially during postpartum. We already have enough going on, let alone within our own bodies. You're taking care of another human being. And if you're someone like Hob, this could be like you don't have just one human, now you have two or three or, whatever. So in the long run, I think setting boundaries is so good for your mental health. And it's just going to be overall better for your relationship with these people because it will allow you to love them more without any built up resentment just because the longer you allow things that bother you, it'll just yeah, it'll compile and cause kind of an explosion that no one wants. So, setting
Yeah.
boundaries is good and healthy. So, Hav, do you have any other final?
Just the last thought, because I've talked a lot I'm an introvert, you're more introverted, so we're
Mhm.
talking a lot more about setting boundaries of, like, maybe only 30-minute long visits, maybe only coming certain times, whatever, but maybe if you're extroverted It is a really good thing to prioritize your mental health, and you're gonna be spending so much time alone with a baby, maybe saying, "Hey, if you come, please plan on spending time with me. Please
Yes.
on having conversations with me." Maybe you wanna talk about baby, maybe you don't wanna talk about baby. Maybe you say, "Hey, when you come over, can we watch a movie together?" Like, certain things. So just think about what is who you are and what you enjoy, and if you need those people to energize you, let them know, like, "Hey, like, thank you for coming to visit the baby, but please also spend time with me."
Yeah. I love that, especially the early days, like, there's so many hours you're awake, especially in the middle of the night, and it can definitely be isolating and lonely. So, I love the idea of also making sure to set some time up for yourself during those times
Yeah.
because it's important. It can be a journey for sure.
Bring me and let's chat. I don't know, just things. Because I mean, even being introverted, I remember there was times where I was like, "I just need an adult to talk to."
Oh, for sure. You just need like human interaction. That's not
Yeah.
a baby. That's not that they're not like there, but they don't talk yet and stuff. And I remember being like, you're like here, but not like here. And it's just, yeah, it's nice to have like
Yeah.
an adult that can respond and like listen for
No,
sure.
but yeah, all that to say, like, boundaries can be they can go multiple ways, and just making sure that you let the people that love you and the people that wanna be there for you know how to best be there for you, because if we don't speak up, as I learned with the first one, they won't know how to support you the way that you need to be supported.
100%. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Anything else? Perfect. That is it for us. Next week, we are going to be diving into gender disappointment. We can't talk about it too much, but we do have some thoughts on it. And I think it is, I mean, we've talked about it before, not in this, like Hav and I've talked about it
Yeah.
individually. And we think this is an important topic just because this can happen and we don't want you to feel guilty for experiencing this. So stay tuned for that. We will be chatting all about that next week and we look forward to seeing you then. Bye.